Darren's consciousness floated in a void, fragmented and lost. Time had no meaning. There was only the cold, endless darkness. The whispers had receded into a low hum, vibrating through his bones. The sense of being watched never left. Somewhere in this nothingness, the creature waited, circling, always just out of sight. "You belong to us now." The words echoed in his mind, relentless. Darren tried to fight, to claw his way back to some semblance of reality, but his body no longer obeyed. He was trapped, a prisoner in his own mind. But then, something shifted. A flicker of light pierced the dark, distant but growing. It pulsed like a heartbeat calling to him. Darren clung to it, willing his mind to follow. He was no longer floating. His feet touched solid ground and the world snapped back into focus. He stood in a forest. The trees gnarled and twisted, their branches clawing at the sky like skeletal fingers. The air was thick with mist, swirling around him as if alive. Darren took a step forward, his limbs heavy. Every step felt wrong, like he was moving through syrup, but he forced himself onward. The light was up ahead, glowing faintly through the fog. He had to reach it. The forest whispered as he moved, the trees groaning and creaking, their voices blending with the hum that still vibrated in his skull. The path twisted and turned, narrowing until the trees closed in on him, their branches brushing against his skin like cold fingers. And then he saw it, the source of the light. A clearing opened up before him, and in its center stood a towering stone monolith, ancient and covered in strange carvings that pulsed with an eerie glow. At its base lay the book, the same leather-bound book from the chamber beneath the church, but now its pages fluttered wildly, as if caught in an invisible wind. As Darren approached, the whispers grew louder again, more frantic. "Don't open it." The voice was unfamiliar, different from the others, softer, pleading. Darren hesitated, his hand hovering over the book. He felt the pull of it, stronger than before, an invisible thread tugging at his very soul. "It's a trap." The voice was a woman's, distant, but urgent. Darren's heart raced. Was someone else here? Was there a way out? He scanned the clearing but saw no one, only the trees and the monolith, watching silently. He glanced down at the book, its pages still flicking back and forth, the air around it vibrating with power. Darren's mind screamed at him to turn back, to run. But the pull was overwhelming. His fingers grazed the leather, and instantly the ground trembled. The mist swirled violently, and from the shadows of the trees figures began to emerge, twisted, gaunt, their hollow eyes staring blankly ahead. The same creature from the church but multiplied, dozens of them, their mouths hanging open but no sound escaping. "It's too late." The woman's voice again, but this time it came from within the book. Darren yanked his hand away, heart pounding. The figures were closing in, their shapes distorting, shifting into forms that defied reason, arms elongating, jaws unhinging. In a panic, Darren grabbed the book and hurled it against the monolith. The instant it struck the stone, the ground split open, a jagged chasm tearing through the clearing. From the depths, a blinding light shot up, piercing the sky. The figures stopped, frozen in place, as if tethered to the light. Then slowly, one by one, they began to disintegrate, their bodies unraveling into the mist. The whispers quieted, fading into the air like a distant memory. For a moment, Darren thought it was over, but then the light shifted. It wasn't a release, it was something being pulled free. The monolith cracked, pieces of stone falling away as something inside began to stir. A shape, vast and incomprehensible, rose from the chasm. The air grew impossibly cold. Darren's breath hitched as the thing emerged. An ancient, formless entity, its body a mass of swirling darkness, tendrils stretching out in every direction. Its presence was suffocating, a weight pressing down on the world itself. And in the midst of that darkness, Darren saw it, a pair of burning eyes, eyes that had been watching him all along. "You brought us here," the entity said, though it had no mouth. Its voice was everywhere, in the ground, in the air, in Darren's mind. "And now, you will release us." Darren staggered back, hands trembling. He had no control anymore. He could feel it, his will slipping away. The book had been the key, but he was the door. The entity's tendrils reached out, wrapping around him, cold and unyielding. The world began to fracture, pieces of reality breaking away like shards of glass. Darren screamed, but his voice was lost in the maelstrom. The last thing he saw before the darkness consumed him was the monolith crumbling to dust, and the ancient thing rising higher, free at last. Then, there was nothing.